And welcome everybody to another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung. I am joined by Eric Wiedeke. I am joined by Ron Caniff. We may have some more folks coming in a little bit later to discuss the question that's on everybody's mind right now. What is really wrong with the Miami Dolphins? Because so far, the expectations, we had them sky high. And this is something I was talking about with Eric at work today. Maybe that's our fault. Maybe our expectations were too high for this team. We were expecting Super Bowl caliber performance out of a team where we knew exactly where the flaws were. And maybe that's partly why we're so disappointed now, is because we did not have the wherewithal to realize what was wrong. Eric says no, and I'm going to let him discuss it as we continue. But before we get too far into it, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at jerseys305.com. I'll play that audio for you now.
Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a great new sponsor that fits with us perfectly. It's called jerseys305.com. That's jerseys305.com. This is your home for dead stock and vintage jerseys from the Heat, Panthers, Dolphins, Marlins, and the other local teams. Their mission was born from a passion for wearing jerseys of the old styles and the past players. Jerseys 305 aims to make every fan stand out from the crowd with unique pieces that you don't commonly see anymore. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, but not today. And Jerseys 305 was created by the fans, for the fans. They're diehards just like you. In fact, they're probably listening to this episode right now. So check them out, Jerseys 305, their partnership with 5 Reasons Sports, celebrating with a 10% discount on the next purchase using the code 5 at checkout. Unlock your exclusive savings on the entire vintage collection.
And again, that's jerseys305.com. Use that promo code 5. You'll get 10% off your order. Looking for all memorabilia, whether it's Dolphins, Heat, or the Miami Hurricanes. It was actually a good Miami team this year. So for those of you, it's like only one team is allowed to be good at a time. Now that the Hurricanes are good, now the Dolphins have to take a step back. That is the rule, folks. You can only have one good football team in Miami at a time.
In town, and that's it.
Yeah,
is that like much a Giants-Jets situation where they're like never really good?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Well, a lot of times both of them aren't good, so the chances of them both actually being good is pretty rare.
Yep. But Eric, since you were disagreeing with my opening statement, I'll go ahead and let you take the floor first, and then I'll let Ron's sign, the way he's listing himself says it all. For those of you who are not watching live and you're listening via the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast audio, his tag for the day reads "Sign Tannehill." That tells you all you need to know about what he has to say. I'll let him get into detail a little bit later. But first, Eric, let's go ahead and hear from you, sir.
I think to say that our expectations were too high is to give this organization from the top down too much of a benefit of the doubt. Somebody needs to be held accountable to the issues at hand here. And to say that our expectations were too high is implicitly giving them a pass. This is an organization that is well over the cap with the resources that they're using. They spent a lot of draft picks throughout this rebuild. They spent a lot of money throughout this rebuild. And when you do that, when you push your chips into the table, as they have, they'll even tell you that they push their chips into the table. Expectations come along with that. That is natural. That is normal. And they should be held to those expectations, because those are the expectations that they've stated for themselves, for one. And for two, like I said, with all the resources that are invested into this roster, from draft capital to financial, the expectations are absolutely reasonable. And I think to say that our expectations were too high is like I said, it's just you're giving them a pass, and I don't think they deserve that pass. Granted, I think it's too early to pass, final judgment on the season at 1-2, but I think to say, oh, well, our expectations were too high. Oh, well, I guess they really weren't all that good to begin with. That's, I just inherently disagree with that sentiment, really. You're muted.
You're muted, Louis.
My bad. I'm clicking a lot in the background running things. So I get what you're saying. I do. But the problem that I have with it is that at what point do we take responsibility for what we've been looking at, saying that we were the ones? We can still hold them accountable for what they've done.
They don't pay us to evaluate the roster. They get paid to evaluate the roster.
We do it for free. Probably more than they do.
But my point being is that I'm not trying to take away any of the culpability that they have. They are responsible for what we're looking at, no doubt. But even we were saying that we see the obvious flaws, and we're just gonna overlook. We're gonna overlook it. We're just gonna hold and trust in the heart of the cards, as it were, and say, you know what, it's all gonna work out because we have faith in this team that they're gonna find a way to get it done. We knew that the offensive line was having issues. We knew that there were concerns with the whole idea of not re-signing Robert Hunt. We knew that there were concerns with the defensive line, but even then, that's not so much of an issue right now. It's pretty much all on offense. We were counting on the fact, and I was counting on the fact, that Odell Beckham Jr. would be available starting week 1 because that's what we were told. He would be ready to go. He is not ready to go. And now we're being told, oh, there's no setbacks for OBJ. And how do we know that isn't a lie? And that is also part and parcel of the whole thing, is that at one point, do we just say that, you know what, we tried to overlook too many things and we should have been a lot more skeptical of the Dolphins from the jump, like from the get-go. We should have been like, you know what, no, we're not buying this, and you guys have majorly messed up. We should have seen it coming from the beginning.
I mean, you can say that, and I don't think anybody was ever saying, you know, the offensive line isn't an issue. The idea, I think, was, and to be fair, like, let's be really honest with this. I understand that you lose Connor Williams and you lose Robert Hunt. But the offensive line on paper, it's not that the situation isn't that much different than what you've had in the first.
Brewer has played as good or better than Williams, so that was at least a wash.
So, you know, to say there were glaring issues, we've seen this team with a bad offensive line. They made it work with a bad offensive line, at least offensively, the last 2 years. And I think that we genuinely thought, rightfully so, in some circumstances, that guys like Calais Campbell was going to be a good facsimile of Christian Wilkins, which he absolutely has been to this point. That's one point that I'll give to them. They've gotten that right. I think defensively, you can make a case that by mid-season, they'll probably be better than they were last year. Much appreciated, Lenny. That's very nice of you.
Lenny said, look forward to this every Tuesday, for those not watching.
So I think it was perfectly reasonable to say, given their track record, okay, well, you know, they've made it work with a bad offensive line the last couple of seasons. Why can't they do it again? And that's not to say that there was no skepticism. I think all three of us, all four, everybody wanted the Dolphins to draft an offensive lineman, and we were all.
We did draft an offensive lineman.
They did draft for this season. We wanted them to
played
draft
one snap and he owned it. One snap, Lewis.
They did draft an offensive lineman. We wanted them to address it this year. They didn't do that, and we raked them over the coals for it. We did. We could go back in time and we could look at that. We could, there was no praising of, oh, well, you know, you didn't need to draft an offensive lineman. It was, hey, you need to draft an offensive lineman. But this idea that, you know, the offensive line was so cataclysmically bad that it was just going to drag everything down with it, it just hadn't proven to be the case the first 2 years. So I don't think it was reasonable to expect, well, you know, everything's going to come crashing down because of it this year. And again, maybe this is, you know, hey, maybe this is just Tua has covered up for a lot, and I agree with that. And maybe that in itself was, if you want to put something on the fan base, it's that I think for a majority, there was a minority of people that said, hey, I'm apprehensive of Tua staying healthy. But I think 80 to 85% of this fan base, because we were caught up in the feel good of he had played 17 games, he was getting his extension. We got caught up into the feel good of taking his health for granted because we thought he was going to do a good enough job of protecting himself. And that hasn't played out to be the case. And I'll say it again. The offensive line wasn't responsible this time around. And I hate to say it like that, but it's just the truth this time. Not to say that the offensive line is good or it's perfect, but they've been making it work with a bad offensive line. It's not like we went into this with any illusions of the offensive line being good.
All right, Ron, let's hear from you now. Do you have any comments on what Eric's been saying here, or?
The conversations I'm hearing about the Miami Dolphins right now are all extremely premature, and I don't understand why we're having them at 1-2 right now in this season. These are all conversations, the stuff that Eric's talking about, you're talking about, the conversations I'm seeing online, the conversations I'm seeing in the only Fins. These are conversations that sound like we should be having at the end of the season, or if we were 1-2 starting next season and this season went bad too. The Dolphins need to go do something, and there's only one thing they need to do to save the season. That's go get a freaking quarterback to fix this mess. And they should have done it a week ago. They should have done it the Friday after the Buffalo game because you knew where this was going. And I don't care if it means shutting down Tua for the year prematurely before he would want to be shut down, or before we knew for a fact he could or couldn't play. I don't care. You can't risk these next 4 games, which is the easiest stretch of games we're going to have all year, waiting around to see what Tua is going to do, screwing around with Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle and even Huntley. Like, I don't care, man. Huntley was on a practice squad, guys. He was on a practice squad. Let's stop acting like he was going to come in and be the savior. Go sign Ryan Tannehill. Go trade for Russell Wilson. Sounds like it ain't going great right now in Pittsburgh there. And I don't like Russell Wilson, honestly, as a person. From what a lot I've read and what most people have read, I don't love him in the locker room. I don't love it at all. But man, there is absolutely no reason with the talent on this team to just punt on the season and have these conversations about, oh, McDaniel can't change. He sucks. He's so stubborn. He won't change, blah, blah, blah. Really? McDaniel won't change? Do you know how hard it is to look yourself in the mirror and say, holy crap, I'm ruining my life. I'm an alcoholic and I have to do something about it now, or my life as I wanted it to be is over. Do you know how hard it is for a person to do that? How many people can't do that? And he did it. Therefore, he can look himself in the mirror and say, maybe I need to change the way I call plays. Maybe I need to give the play calling to somebody else. He already said he would do whatever he feels would help the team do better. So he can change, but I'm going to even put that aside for the second. I don't care about the play calling thing right now. I'm mostly aggravated that they, number one, put themselves in the situation with QB2, which this is not Monday morning quarterbacking or hindsight is 2020. I was talking about it all offseason. They needed to do a better job there. And I'm very frustrated that to this point, they still, like, we're a game plus in. We're almost 2 weeks now. We're 12 days since Tua got that concussion. And we still have no idea what they're going to end up doing at quarterback over the next 3 to 4 games. Like, we don't know. We still don't know. And we still don't know if Tua could even come back this year or at all, or if he can come back after he's off IR or not. We don't know. Go make a move. Go get a damn quarterback. Go get one right now. Get a quarterback. This is why we wanted Justin Fields. And I am so glad. Chad, you popped on at the most, my God, instant perfect time, because I was just about to bring up, we should be the one with Justin Fields. And this is what me and Chad were talking about in the offseason before training camp, that we should have been the one to go spend a 6th-round pick and go get Justin Fields. That should have been our move. And we said that months ago, but be that as it may, go make a move right now. Go get Russell Wilson. Go sign Ryan Tannehill. I don't know that Jacksonville would be willing to trade for Mac Jones. And I know Mac Jones ain't great, but he's better than the shit we got right now, because this Boyle, Skylar Thompson, Huntley thing, it ain't going to get it done, folks. It ain't going to get it done. So I say everything else is just crap. It's the stuff that we could be talking about later on. Right now, let's focus on how this season gets saved. And this season gets saved by going to get a damn quarterback that can actually. Have you seen what the defense is doing in the second half? Have you guys seen the numbers? They haven't given up 100 yards in 1 second half. They haven't given up a damn point in the second half against one freaking team. This team, and this is a brand new defense, guys. This is a new defensive scheme. A lot of new players. A lot of players got traded out. We lost 2 or 3 good players. We lost others to injury. Chubb's not back yet. This season is not over, and we're talking like we should be firing McDaniel, firing Greer, I'm over here in that crap. We're 1-2. We got an easier stretch of games, but we ain't going to win any of them with the quarterback situation we have. So go get a damn quarterback. That's my rant.
My question to you, Ron, and I have to ask because they haven't ruled it out. From everything that they are saying, there is a non-zero chance that Skylar Thompson is under center Monday night. From everything that they're saying, there's a non-zero chance. As much as I would love to say that there is a 0 chance, Monday night he's taking the first snap on offense. Your reaction is what?
I'm done. I'm over.
Right? Okay.
I'm done. So but here's the thing. I don't believe even for a little bit that they're going to do that. I'll be pretty annoyed if it's Boyle. I'll be like, okay, let's see what happens if it's Huntley, but I'm done. Now, here's the only caveat to that. If they went and made a move for a quarterback, they went and they decided to trade for Russell Wilson, or they signed Ryan Tannehill, and they did it because, look, unfortunately, they still felt like out of the 3 guys that they had, minus the new guy, this was kind of the only thing we could do for the Monday night game. I'll live with it. But if you do that and you haven't made a move for a quarterback, bro, I'm going to be so pissed. I am going to be so angry if they do that. But I don't think they're going to do that, Eric. I'm just going to have more faith than everyone else seems to have in this team. And I don't believe that Skylar Thompson will be the star. I think they're going to be able to just say, oh, he's injured, he's not ready anyway. So they're really going to be able to get out of it without having to make it sound like, oh, we messed up. Hey, guys, we screwed up. Everybody knows the gif, right? From The Hangover. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think we'll be fine. But, man, I'll lose my shit if they do that, Eric. It's the honest truth.
If anybody wants to give me a price, I'm willing to bet a good amount that Skylar Thompson never starts another game for the Miami Dolphins.
I like it. See, now we got now we have a voice of reason coming from the shadows. Look,
this team has done some things that are in character the couple of years, and they tend to overreact to their mistakes, which is a good thing. It'd be better if they just admit their mistakes like right away. But I think that this overreaction on Tua's injury is going to cause them to not only make a move at the quarterback position for a long-term insurance for Tua, but I think that they're going to care about QB3 as well. And I think that this Skylar Thompson thing is probably going all the way up to the top. Okay. And if you don't think that Dan Marino you saw Dan Marino's body language in the box. If you don't think he's going all the way up to the top, and that Greer is not looking at this and saying, I am not going to let Skylar Thompson be the reason why I'm fired at the end of the season. So I would venture to guess, look, Tyler Huntley will probably start on Monday. That's just my guess. I think it's a pretty strong guess. They're dropping all the hints. Like they want to keep that competitive advantage. But I would venture to guess that they might even make a move for somebody like Russell Wilson. And in 4 weeks' time, the quarterback room will be something like Tua is the starter, Russell is the backup, and Tyler Huntley is QB3. And I think that will be their reaction to this dereliction of duty and I don't even know what word to call it, malpractice, to go into this season with Skylar Thompson as the insurance policy to Tua Tagovailoa. And at the end of the season, I think that that's something that they're going to look at also, because I think that this is something that might happen right before March 14th. They might go to Tua, and they might say, look what happened. You know, you ended up missing 4 games. We ended up going 2-2 or whatever. That's the best case scenario. And it probably cost us the division. And what cost us the division is that you had another concussion. So let's do something about this 2026, 2027 thing. If he says no, then they'll just release him and a complete renegotiation. Or you might just say, look, screw you, and I'll go somewhere else. But he might just say, all right, let's renegotiate this deal. And they start killing off all of those guarantees in 2026 and 2027. But then it's going to be a 2-prong approach. They're either going to draft a guy, or they're going to get some type of long-term insurance policy, which means they're going to get a starter-level quarterback behind him. Because that's what they've done. Last year, they were left with no edge rushers, and this year they have too many of them, which is a good thing, because you never know when they're going to take an injury there, right? Of course, now they're relatively injury-free at edge, and they have guys. Think about what they have going right now at edge. Like, they overreacted, which is a good thing. It's always better to overreact and fix something than just say, it's fine, and then it blows up in your face like it did now, right? Think about what's going to happen in a few weeks when Bradley Chubb comes back. In a few weeks when Bradley Chubb comes back, Mo Kamara is still going to be buried on the practice squad because he's not going to be able to be active, right? Quentin Bell is essentially gone, and Chop Robinson is going to lose snaps. So that's a good problem to have. I think that that's the way they're going to look at the quarterback position going forward. They're going to look at it as, we can't do this no more, because look what happened because of our mistake. And of course, the next shoe to drop will be at guard. Unfortunately, or fortunately, they got Isaiah Wynn coming back, so they might think that they're just fine there. But oddly enough, the best thing that this team does is run inside the tackles and run trap plays with their guards, which is all kinds of weird. All right. But yeah, for Monday, I would expect Tyler Huntley to play. And I'm sorry, I saw a completely incompetent. And we were talking about, I think it was Kyle Krabs who was talking about this on his show, who's been pretty good on this for weeks now, and for the last 3 days, especially since that debacle against the Seahawks. He said he watched the Giants, so did I, get Malik Neighbors involved in their passing game with not much else, not much other help. I'm sorry, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Jalen Waddle, you could get them involved in your passing game. You can't just be completely incompetent. And the only reason you were completely incompetent is because Skylar Thompson is not an NFL quarterback. And whose fault is that? Whoever scouted him, whoever drafted him, and whoever decided to play him and keep him on the roster for 3 years. In my opinion, it was a waste of time for 3 years. We saw it in year 2, but somehow they decided to keep this mistake going. But like all things with this team in recent history, they got to learn from their mistakes, but they still got to make those mistakes first, right? And all those mistakes end up costing them games. So they got to get to the point where they don't make the mistakes, period. And they head off these issues. They did a good job with it on the edge. They completely neglected quarterback. Who would have thought?
I mean, the mentality is that, Tua survived once, he'll survive again. And that's unfortunately just not going to be the case. Now, I am not in this camp.
And judging by that game against Seattle, it might have cost you the game. Because had they just signed Tyler Hunt, and look, man, I get all the arguments. He was on a practice squad. He's a starter level backup, meaning he's a guy that wants to keep an eye out for where he can start. He is going to massage his fate in a way where he can get an opportunity to play. He's 26 years old. He's younger than Skylar Thompson, by the way. Okay. He almost beat the Bengals, the Bengal team that went to the AFC Championship game and lost to the Chiefs. Okay. The Bengal team that beat the crap out of the Buffalo Bills in a snowstorm in week 2. That team, Tyler Huntley almost beat them. And he actually played well to beat them in the wild card round. Not like Skylar Thompson, who was just standing in the way. Tyler Huntley actually did that. He's 26 years old. He's looking around the landscape and he's like, man, where can I get an opportunity to play? He finally got one. But that's why he was bouncing around. It's not because he can't play. We've seen him play. He's 26 years old. There's some talent there. And one thing's for sure, he's a professional NFL quarterback, something that Skylar Thompson is not. Had they signed him in March, let's say, who knows? Maybe they win that game against the Seahawks. Because you saw the game script of that game. Defense played really, really well. They had several opportunities to be in the game and to possibly tie it late. And what happened? They just had completely incompetent quarterback play. Do you think Tyler Huntley misses on that when they ran that scissors concept with Tanner Connor? Do you think he misses that throw? Or just doesn't see it because Skylar Thompson saw it so late and threw it so late that it ended up becoming double coverage because he threw it so late? Do you think he completely misses that? I don't think so. Do you think he misses Tyreek on the slant in the end zone? I don't think so either. Does he miss that mesh concept with Waddle in the third quarter that could have gone a long way? No. The film is right there. Any competent quarterback, they probably are in that game. Do they win it? Probably not. I ended up being completely wrong because I had them beating Buffalo and losing to Seattle with Tua because I thought the Seattle team was a lot better. This Seattle team is very, very, very flawed. And Miami actually had a chance to win that game with any kind of competent quarterback play. And if they had Tua, they would have been 2-1, like I said, but they would have won the wrong game. They would have lost to Buffalo and they would have beaten Seattle, probably by a field goal or something, but they would have beaten them because the defense was good enough.
All right. So now, Chad, I want to go ahead and go to you, sir, because like Ron, you also were on the off-season quarterback train here. So I guess you can, and I guess in a way, you and Ron both kind of feel vindicated because it's like it's a moment to say, "We told you so."
No, I mean, so obviously I thought we needed a better backup quarterback because of Tua's injury history. And it's not just concussion. This guy he's only made one season almost since his junior in college, completely healthy. But going forward to replace the quarterback, they got to look at this year and future years as well, because I think the change now, probably up to all the way to Stephen Ross, is you can't continue forward with just the plan being Tua anymore. He's just too high risk now to lose him at any point in the season, right? So it's not just this year; it's going forward with Tua's contract. What do you do as the backup quarterback? And where I was at back on the Justin Fields trains is I don't think Tua Tagovailoa should ever play 1 or 2 yard to go down. I think he should be removed from the field on those downs because a running quarterback is a much bigger advantage on third and short type plays, because running ability is really hard to stop out of a quarterback from getting a couple yards. And so my philosophy was somebody like Justin Fields just always comes onto the field when it's 3rd and 1, whether it's to do a quarterback sneak or to run your short yardage packages. And I think hopefully that's something they might be able to do ongoing with Tyler Huntley. He could absolutely do that. But you got to remove Tua from getting hit as often as possible. And I don't see how you could feasibly have Tua run a quarterback sneak the rest of his career. I don't know why you would ever do that. And so knowing that removes some of your ability to convert short yardage first downs, because the quarterback sneak's one of the hardest plays to stop from getting a first down. So I think the Dolphins are going to have to figure out some sort of hybrid approach in the future on when to use Tua and when not to use Tua. And that's the reality until he's probably 2 or 3 years into his contract before they could leave it. Because Tua is not going to give his contract up. He's not going to give up his guaranteed money. So when you look at quarterbacks, what are our options? Now, I've been promoting Russell Wilson since Tua got hurt, simply because Russell Wilson only has like a $1.2 million cap hit, and Miami does not have any cap money to spend right now, right? You can't go get Ryan Tannehill because we don't have what he's going to want. We don't have the cap space to realistically give it to him going into next year. He's going to want minimum $10 million, or he's just going to stay on his couch. And he really wants to play the rest of the season, and those aren't offers the Dolphins can give. I think Justin Fields has already won the starting job in Pittsburgh right now. I don't think it would make sense for the Steelers to put Russell Wilson there, and I honestly don't think he's even really that hurt. I think that's kind of being left that way for Russell Wilson's sake, and it's just in case Justin Fields struggled, then you could say, well, Russell Wilson was the number one guy, right? He's healthy now, he's playing again. I think that train's kind of gone now because Fields has played well enough, and Justin Fields is giving Pittsburgh a viable franchise quarterback going forward, and so Russell Wilson's not. So what would need to happen is Russell Wilson needs to go to Pittsburgh and say, I want out, or I'm going to be a problem right now. Because Russell Wilson shouldn't want to stay in Pittsburgh now because he needs to think about what's my contract viability going to be next season, and what's the best team Russell Wilson could go to right now to look good. And Miami's not going to be a better opportunity for him than anybody in the league right now because you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you have a relatively healthy team. Russell Wilson could do pretty well on this team. But will Pittsburgh let him go? Pittsburgh's 3-0, and he's a very good backup quarterback for that team right now, and they don't have to pay him anything. So Pittsburgh's not going to just say, yeah, that's fair. So he's going to have to kind of force his way out, and Miami's probably going to have to give them at least like a third or fourth round pick in compensation for that to be realistic. Mac Jones is becoming more realistic by the day because Jacksonville does not look remotely competitive for a playoff spot right now. And even though he hasn't played well, with that contract, Trevor Lawrence is still their guy. So they may be willing to take like a third round pick for Mac Jones and just re-sign like a CJ Beathard or something like that. But I think Mac Jones would be maybe one of the best possibilities for the remainder of this season yet, because we're all under the impression Tua is going to return in 4 weeks, and I don't know that he necessarily will return in 4 weeks. And so, especially if we only have one win, it starts to get to the point why even risk Tua getting another concussion right now with where he's at to bringing him back. So I think if we go out and trade for a quarterback, it has to be a viable guy that could play the rest of the year if needed. That may not be the plan, but it would have to be somebody that could viably be our starter for this rest of this season. And ideally, if you're going to give up a draft pick, it's got to be somebody that might be able to be with the team next year at a contract that's somewhat functional. So that brings up, Russell Wilson, you could this year without a big contract hit, or if you're going to go get a Mac Jones or a Zach Wilson or a Bryce Young or any other popular names out there, we're going to have to give up a significant draft asset, and that player would have to be staying with this team next year as well in a capacity where you expect them to potentially play, because that's what has to be the viewpoint now going forward with Tua. You have to just assume you need a quarterback 1A and 1B, or you're just going to look at throwing future seasons away if Tua gets hurt again. So those are kind of the names you're throwing out there right now. My bigger concern after all that, going through kind of that a little bit with some of our options, is where is the accountability right now with Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer in evaluating quarterbacks? Tua was given to Mike McDaniel. He didn't draft him. He was on the team. And I don't blame Chris Greer as much as Mike McDaniel. Is whose idea was it to go with Mike White? Because this isn't a Skylar Thompson problem. The problem here is we were paying $3.5-4 million, or no, was it $5 million? I don't know what Mike White's contract was, but Mike White was being paid to be here to be the backup quarterback. And the reality is he couldn't beat Skylar Thompson out in the preseason. We all watched that. Mike White was terrible. And you've seen what Skylar Thompson's produced on the field. And so who's the evaluator in all of this? Because if our belief was Mike White's a viable backup quarterback coming into the offseason, that's why we didn't go get another quarterback at Justin Fields, because I have to think the belief was Mike White was going to win the backup job. And the problem is he stunk up the joint so bad in the preseason, they didn't have anybody else. So they just went with Skylar Thompson and essentially hoped that Tua didn't get hurt. I mean, that was the plan. And right now, I don't know who do you trust? Like, is Mike White, is Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer going to be able to go draft a quarterback next year that could be a viable starter? That's not easy to do in the draft. Are they going to bring in a free agent quarterback that's going to be a viable starter? When they thought Mike White was. I mean, so that's what makes me nervous, along with, can Mike McDaniel put a game plan together and understand what limitations are on his players? Not only, I feel bad for Skylar Thompson because we're playing against a team that couldn't stop the run. I mean, New England ran all over them, and they lost their starting 2 D tackles early in this game. They lost a Pro Bowl D tackle in their first round pick. And we continued to try to run our offense with Skylar Thompson, who couldn't run it. And I don't understand what the thought process was. And not just that, I mean, in prior weeks, how are we losing games because Robbie Chosen doesn't know how to run his routes, or DeBose doesn't know the timing after only being here for a few weeks? You know, Alf was talking about throwing to Tanner Connor, but why is he even being relied on? I mean, you're talking about the fourth tight end right now. We've got Tyreek Hill, we've got Jalen Waddle, we've got Janu Smith, we've got Devon Achane, and we're not getting those guys the balls, and we're relying on guys that are probably not even making rosters on other teams right now. And so to me, that's Mike McDaniel thinking that maybe he's smarter than the league and not understanding the talent levels of the players you have. It's not like this is an injury-riddled team. The players I just named off, that's like 4 options you could have in any kind of an offensive scheme. So it's a mystery to me right now. Why are we not playing Janu Smith and watching Julian Hill get penalty after penalty after penalty and hurt this team? And so that's what I can't wrap my head around. Isn't necessarily a Skylar Thompson NFL quarterback. He was a third string quarterback to begin with. What's the plan here? Why are we throwing 32 times with an incompetent quarterback against a team that can't stop the run? It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm sorry, I kind of went off tangent there, but you kind of got to answer those questions before you can even think about going to get another quarterback.
All right. So before we go ahead and continue, just need to go ahead and bring up another sponsor for this show. It is Underdog Fantasy.
To tell you about Underdog Fantasy. It's the greatest time of year again. Football is back, and it's here to stay till February. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats, for example, touchdowns, passing yards, and more. Do what I do and make Mondays and Thursday nights much more interesting. Making picks on Underdogs is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code 3YARDS. That's the number 3 yards. And Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code 3YARDS. The number 3 yards to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama, New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
All right. So let's I want to go ahead and I want to address some of the things that were happening in the chat. So let's be clear about something. There's a line to be crossed. I understand, like, this is the pulse of Fins Nation. We take the pulse of Fins Nation. That's what we do here. But going off the rails, I feel like that's where we kind of have to draw the line. So if people kind of disappear, and by the way, to Indade, who may or may not still be listening to the show, your situation was an accident, so you are free to comment. Again, we apologize for the accidental button pushing. We're all trying to moderate this show at the same time. But I wanted to address something because the anger that was being displayed, I understand it to some extent. However, this is something that I wanted to address earlier on, because this is something that I talked about with Eric while we were at work as well. And this is where I asked the question, at what point is it acceptable to even consider the idea of blowing it all up? Because that was what was being advocated in a very aggressive manner in the chat. That was what was happening there. There was no reasoning. It was just explicit statements of this person needs to be fired, trade everybody, and just blow the whole thing up in a very aggressive tone. That's why they were removed. But with that being said, this whole idea of removing Mike McDaniel, cut to fire him, just this is where I can't get there. There's no way I can get there.
So
the only way that the only way I could even possibly get there is if this season collapses entirely. Like, we end up going 1-16 and there are no adjustments, no changes, no anything done to address the problems. That would be the only circumstance where I could agree with the idea of, you know what, no, Mike McDaniel needs to go, because he clearly would not have learned a single thing. He would not have adjusted a single thing. And at that point, that level of stubbornness would deserve him to be fired. But I don't think we're there yet. The reason we're not there yet is because we cannot ignore what we already saw in the past. We cannot just pretend like it never happened. And we can't just say that, well, we're here in the now, and that's all that matters. Mike McDaniel has led Miami to 2 straight playoff appearances. They haven't won a playoff game yet, but they've made 2 straight playoff appearances. They've had a top 5 offense in the NFL for those 2 seasons that he's been here. Now, here we are in year 3. We are seemingly on a downturn here. Part of that is because our starting quarterback is missing again. And there is a lot of speculation about whether or not he will still be here in the future. I personally think that he will be back. There are others. I think CK is one of those ones who is a little bit skeptical about whether Tua will come back.
I'm extremely skeptical about whether Tua will play again. Extremely skeptical. Skeptical. I can't even say the word. But
skeptical.
Yeah, skeptical. I really am. I just don't know. It's just not. Nobody knows. Tua doesn't know, right? So how could we know? But I really wonder.
I think Tua knows what he wants to do.
Oh, we all know what Tua wants to do. Tua wants to come back. That's not the question. Will he? Will he be allowed to? Will the NFL allow it?
Okay, again,
I have no idea.
We already addressed that, though. There is no circumstance in which the NFL can. I already said this during.
I believe their independent neurologist could just simply not clear him to play football again. I'm pretty sure that he could. Maybe Alf could speak to that. Pretty sure the NFL independent neurologist could simply just not clear him for football.
Okay, but hold on. Hold on though.
Just ending his career in essence.
But I will let Alf comment in on this. But first, I want to bring this up because this is what I said before. I feel like to take the decision out of Tua's hands is worse for the NFL. It's more of a black eye than for Tua to be allowed to make the decision for himself and end up getting hurt again. Because if you are Tua and you are told by your independent neurologist or whatever, and again, I use this air quote movement a lot during the post-game show, the independent neurologist. If you come up with an explanation, an excuse, if you will, and if there are conflicting diagnosis, the conflicting ideas of whether Tua can or should play football ever again. If one neurologist says go ahead and then one neurologist says no, and if that one no decides to be the one that is the end all be all, here comes Tua to come in and say, well, you know what? I like this other doctor who said that I'm fine. So why is it that you guys are automatically taking the decision out of my hands, saying that I am not allowed to come back? And he's going to fight the NFL on that. I don't think he's just going to lie down and say, well, you know what, NFL, you don't want me to play. I guess I won't play anymore. There's no way that he's going to accept that. And if he were to accept that, that would really go against his grain, because that competitive spirit that he has, he's not going to just lay down and let it go. He's going to come out here and say,
I can tell you definitively right now, the NFL will not do that, because the NFL already is in lawsuits over CTE, right? And if you do that, that's an admission of guilt that you understand the potential consequences of concussions with CTE. Right now, the NFL has this veil of plausible deniability that they don't know how badly concussions affect CTE, because you can't tell it unless it's post-mortem, and some of the players are older now and they were at different rules. And so the NFL wants to say our protocols protect players. Now it doesn't cause CTE. Tua's only had 3 confirmed concussions. If you tell Tua specifically, our independent neurologist has said you are no longer going to be allowed to play because of the risk, then you have to, as the NFL, defend every single player in the last 10 years, 20 years that's played with an independent neurologist that would say their situation was worse than Tua's, and you allowed them to continue. Therefore, the NFL is immediately liable to damages to every single person they didn't do what they did with Tua. Does that make sense? Like, the NFL won't do that. Like, the liability they would open up if they tell Tua specifically, because you can't say Tua's case is unique to any other players that have had concussions and we allowed them to play. You've got people that have had 6, 7, 8, 9 concussions played football that they didn't stop. And so the problem is the NFL doesn't want Tua to play because he's got such a spotlight on him. Like the media is talking about it. And the NFL doesn't want to talk about concussions and CTE because it's blatantly obvious that concussions increase your risk of CTEs. But they won't stop him. There's no way they're going to do that. I just want to point that out. Like the NFL would open up such a can of worms to do that. What the NFL could do realistically, this was Steve Young that had mentioned this, is you could go and say, in the case of a concussion, because the player like Tua could walk on the field right now and be a top 15 quarterback immediately today. But the question is, at what risk does he do that? Because the longer or the sooner he comes back, the higher the risk of him getting another concussion, right? And so they want him to wait as long as possible to minimize the risk of brain damage and getting another concussion right away. But the reality is he could play right now and perform at a top 15 quarterback level, provided he doesn't take a hard hit to the head. That's a unique case for the NFL. This isn't an Achilles. This isn't an ACL. What the NFL could do, I think we even talked about this on Twitter, maybe, Eric, but they could just say, in the case of multiple concussions, we're going to create an exception in the salary cap where Miami, you could cut Tua and pay his $167 million off, and we'll remove it from being counted against the salary cap. That gives the NFL like an exit lane off of the problem that you're talking about of wanting to not have a player play, where it's basically telling Miami, all right, you can move on from Tua without the salary cap hit, and that makes it possible. Because right now Miami can't move on from Tua, and Tua can't move on because then Tua has to go into a legal battle that says he's unfit to play quarterback, which isn't as easy as it might sound because there's a lot of other players that have had more concussions than Tua that are still playing. So Miami would have a very valid claim to tell Tua, you can retire, but if you retire, we don't owe you your money. So the Dolphins need Tua to play, and Tua has to play, and Tua will play because I can tell you, if it's me and I can give my family $167 million, I'll take the risk every time. It's worth it. It's just simply worth it. And I mean, there's people walking in a convenience store buying cigarettes right now, knowing that they cause cancer and they're unhealthy, and they can go buy them. And so it's not like Tua's oblivious to the risks he's taken. If he chooses to take them, he'll take them. I think is what you're saying, Lewis. Give him the NFL will not intervene, other than they'll be very cautious with his protocol. And I think they'll be very, very quick to pull the trigger with the spotter. If he exhibits any symptoms during the game, they'll immediately make him be pulled. But I don't think it'll go beyond that. And I don't see any other avenue unless the NFL gives the out on the salary cap where Tua won't return at some point in time to play quarterback.
You know, I agree with all of that. Firstly, I do think I think the idea that if Tua were to be told no versus getting hurt on the field again in a pretty catastrophic manner, that would look way worse on the NFL. Because you know what the public opinion would be. The public opinion would be, oh, well, you know, Tua's decision-making processes and even wanting to come back were already affected by the head injuries he had previously and this and that. Like that would be the narrative there. It would be a PR nightmare for the NFL. They would say clearly he wasn't equipped to make those decisions for himself, given the damage that he had sustained to his head, this and that. But you know, I do patently disagree with the idea that the NFL is going to tell him not to. A lot of because of what you said, Chad. The other thing is, I think it just creates a really blurry situation where is the cutoff there? Like, what is the line where if the NFL is going to say, okay, Tua can't play, where's the line for Tua? Where's the line for other players? Is this going to become a normal thing? And I just don't think the NFL wants to put themselves in that position to where they're kind of legislating, you know, who can and who can't play based on their health. And I know that they do that to a very small extent in the most extreme circumstances, but I don't necessarily think they want to be in that position because it just becomes like a can of worms that they just don't open that up.
If you do it, it immediately goes, so Devonta Smith's probably done too then, right? Or how in the world did you not stop Antonio Brown from playing after that Vontaze Burfict hit? Those were worse, you know, and so it just becomes, they can't just do this for Tua and it'll go away. It won't work that way. It becomes next man up, like, oh, all right, that precedence is set now. Like, so the next bad concussion, that guy's going to have to be pulled for his career, right?
And I feel like at that point, you basically have to look at the NFL as a whole and say, you know what? Clearly, you are too dangerous to be played. It needs to be dissolved. And
I think it's important. Levels. I think it's important to monitor Lane Johnson going forward. Let's see what happens with Lane Johnson, because not only did he have a bad concussion, he's had many in his NFL career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, by the way, who should have been a Dolphin, by the way. But that's a conversation for another day. But he was exhibiting violent vomiting on the sidelines. I don't know if you saw it. It's the highest grade concussion you can possibly have. Let's see what happens. He should be on IR today. We shall see. How long did it take to put Tua on IR? What was it, 3 days?
Yeah.
So
and those are people saying that it took too long. It should have been immediate.
Okay, he wasn't playing. It doesn't matter.
Then Lane Johnson should be on IR tomorrow. Okay, because first of all, he plays in a position where there's much more contact consistently than with Tua. Okay, he should be on IR tomorrow, and we shall see if that happens. Because there are other coaches, by the way, that look when Dolphin fans say that the media is out to get them, and people call them paranoid. You're not paranoid if they really are out to get you. Okay. Look at what happened in 2022 with Tua. Then look at what happened with Mike Tomlin in 2023 with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett scooped up his brains 3 times that season and poured them back into his helmet to play that year because Mike Tomlin said he could. Nobody said anything. Derek Carr had 3 concussions last year. He missed 1 game. 1 game. 3 concussions in a year. So now let's see Lane Johnson. Let's see what happens with Lane Johnson, because I think this one is a little bit better. It's a good comparison because Lane Johnson's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a really important player for the Eagles. So if he goes on IR, it's a big deal. Just like Tua going on IR is a big deal. So let's see how it happens with Lane Johnson.
My thing with the Lane Johnson thing, though, is for a guy that's been in the league that long, who's won a championship already, who's made life-changing money already, I would imagine the decision to walk away, if that's even on the table for him, is just so much easier than it is for a guy like Tua, who still views himself as having so much to prove. So I don't know if we even see the league step in that situation because of the fact that
they don't want to. I think what Alpha's saying, will they do it? Go ahead, sorry.
Right. And he just patently plays a position that's more prone to those types of injuries. I mean, we've already heard from many neurologists that the mini concussions that offensive linemen get prove to be just as serious as the big concussions that, wide receivers going over the middle get, or quarterbacks running out into the open field tend to get. So it'll be interesting to see if the league has a reaction, if Lane Johnson kind of nips that in the bud before we even see what happens there. I think it'll be an interesting case study, but you're looking at a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that you can kind of point to their history of, that guy is that really the guy that should be playing right now? Should that guy and for the NFL to even want to, it's just bizarre that the NFL would want to call attention to Tua in that way, because you're just shining so much light on an issue that for the last 15 years they've wanted eyes as far away as possible from. So I think that's really something that they don't like. They would rather just not address it at all whatsoever. And I think that's probably what they end up doing, if for no other reason than a PR play.
Well, we didn't really actually talk about this upcoming game at all, which I mean, at this point, is there really anything left to say about what we're going to be seeing this upcoming month?
Because it's all going to be about the quarterback play, like it was the last game, and we have no clue right now who that quarterback's going to be. I mean, I guess we have a little bit of a clue. We figure it's going to be Boyle or Huntley, because anybody they could sign or trade for right now probably isn't going to be ready to play on Monday, although maybe today's Tuesday. It's not likely. So it's probably going to be Tim Boyle or Travis Huntley. It sure as hell better not be Skylar Thompson. That's all I know.
I think if it's not Huntley, then like I said, my concern is who's the evaluator right now for quarterbacks. I have to think that's McDaniel. And again, this is the guy that thought Mike White was a viable option instead of going and getting a Justin Fields. That's concerning to me. But I know there's people out there that are saying, well, Boyle didn't look too bad. Boyle's, when we got that pass interference call on Alec Ingold, he come out and immediately threw to the fullback into double coverage. It was a horrific decision on the pass. I don't know what he was even looking at. So I don't think we'll get blown out by an 0-3 Titans team if we start Boyle. I can tell you right now, he's not good.
I want to push back real quick, Chad. That guy that you says you're concerned about him evaluating quarterbacks also took a quarterback that the NFL, the media, and Dolphins fans had thrown aside as trash and made him one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and knew he could do that from the beginning. So I'm not sure that his ability to evaluate quarterbacks is super in question besides Skylar Thompson.
Did he do that, or did he just go out and get some really talented players and put with a quarterback that was really good already, because he can't evaluate quarterbacks?
And he put that, and clearly nobody else. Well, if it was just that, then anybody could run the offense. They were right back to that thing with Tua.
No.
And anybody could run that offense.
Who was Tua playing with Flores relative to what he's playing with McDaniel?
Yeah, no, it wasn't close.
I'm pointing out.
It isn't a matter of just getting good wide receivers, and
right.
Tua's not good. We just got good wide receivers. That isn't even close to true.
Not what he's done with Tua has been phenomenal, but he wasn't who evaluated and drafted Tua.
But he knew enough that he wanted to move forward with the quarterback. You know, he'd looked at him before he even went to that interview.
Right, but he also drafted Skylar Thompson and brought in Mike White as his alternative quarterbacks. He had to evaluate them thinking they were good, right?
Yeah, we didn't see Mike White actually play in real games, though. That was Mike White's thing, right? When he got into the Jets game, he actually played well. They should have just kept Mike White if they were going to keep Skylar Thompson. They should have just kept Mike White.
They can go get Mike White today. He is on.
Yeah,
Buffalo's
I know, because they know
squad.
they can do better than Mike White. That's why.
I'm if we're talking about quarterbacks, I'm probably gonna say that the wildest thing here, and it's probably gonna get a lot of flack as soon as I utter this guy's name.
Oh,
Did he for it?
You're not doing that. You're not doing that. You're not doing that.
I thought he lost the. I thought you lost your internet signal. That would have been hilarious.
you left me hanging in
You're not
Spencer.
I didn't
You're
hear
not
what you
doing that, Lewis. But as crazy as it sounds to say, Russell Wilson, if we're going to go and we're going to get somebody, I'd rather get a younger guy, and I'd rather get a guy that's really talented.
Don't say Trey Lance.
No.
Okay.
Don't say Zach Wilson.
You guys are looking at the wrong Wilson.
Oh, no. Man, you should have kept his.
I'm not.
I should have kicked him out of the show.
That's terrible.
At least there's talent there. See what
Where?
Mike McDaniel can do with the
Mike
talent.
White ran circles around Zach Wilson, and he couldn't even beat out Skylar Thompson. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go with it's a no from me.
Listen,
for Zach Wilson,
listen,
sir.
man. Do you know how dysfunctional the Jets have been the last half?
I know that Zach Wilson got beat out by Mike White, who got beat out by Skylar Thompson, who might be the worst quarterback I ever saw play for the Miami Dolphins in my life.
And I've seen
Sunday.
Zach Wilson play, and I could say that he's better than Skylar Thompson at least.
I don't know. The math says he's not. The data indicates that it's a no.
I would. That would be a hard disagree from me.
Understood.
Zach Wilson
I've
is.
seen.
Zach Wilson.
I would say only Nathan Peterman is the worst quarterback. Worse than Skylar
Peterman,
Thompson.
man.
You better not be saying that name, because I would have said Boyle's the worst I've seen, and he might be playing for us right now. So again, with
Boyle
who we got
is the problem.
Yeah, Boyle was more competent than Skylar in that game. I understand he made some mistakes too, and he's not perfect. Look, we are talking about right now the options for starting for the Miami Dolphins right now on this time, and this team is 3 quarterbacks, and they are all practice squad level at best, guys, except for maybe Huntley, but who, by the way, if he was so great, then why the hell was he on someone's practice squad and not at least a QB2 somewhere in this league. That means a lot of people evaluated him and decided, you know what? It kind of worked there. They made it work because they really cut it down to like these 15 concepts and they made it super simple for him, but he's not our guy to even be our QB2. They have 3 practice squad guys to choose from right now. So we're arguing over who, which is the best crap to put at quarterback.
You're right. We are.
I mean, we're really arguing over nothing.
But
I want them to. They need to go sign a guy. Go trade for a guy. Go do it now.
You want to know
Malik
who
Willis was a 7th. Justin Fields was a 6th, but Malik Willis was a 7th.
Yeah, just go find a guy.
You want me to blow y'all's mind?
Yeah.
God.
You know who I'd get right now
Who?
to run quarterback?
Who?
Lynn
Colin Kaepernick?
Bowden Jr.
Oh no!
to run the
Now we're in
Wildcats.
silly town. I'd take Zach Wilson. I'll take
Zach
Wildcats.
Wilson's looking good now.
Yeah, Zach Wilson's looking pretty good right now.
Let me ask you something.
Run the ball.
Let me ask you guys a question. What is it with Dolphin fans where you post a simple, and I did it kind of on purpose, okay? You post a simple stat that says Jalen Ramsey had the very rare 5-target, 3-reception, 5 yards allowed game versus DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then I write, he has allowed 59 yards in 3 games. All of that is verifiable. This is not a debate. What causes Dolphin fans to then pile in to trash Jalen Ramsey?
I
Rage.
have no problem.
They
with
just want to
Ramsey.
trash
I can
every.
say that.
They are just Dolphins fans. They don't know how to do this, and we should be experts at what we're going through right now. More so, than
These people
any other
don't
team.
understand that Jalen Ramsey is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of your best players. He's what's good about this team.
These are the same people saying we should fire Mike McDaniel.
No, people
that's why I
don't
don't pay for
understand the Jalen Ramsey stuff because you got to realize too when you take
And then
away
people say,
four-
no, you're wrong because he gave up a 71-yard touchdown to DK Metcalf.
He didn't.
And I'm like,
He
that's
didn't.
cover 2.
Yeah.
No, it's not cover
Oh.
2. And then I have a guy arguing me, no, that's man in cover 2. He just passed him up. And I'm like,
No.
so I had to post the diagram, and you can put it up, Louis. It'll be educational. You can put the diagram I put up of cover 2 on 3YPC. Okay,
It's on the Discord, which is, by the way, only $3.
No, it's not on the Discord. It's right here. I'm gonna put it in the private chat so you could get it. Okay, there it is. That's the diagram, and we're gonna do a little thing called Chalk Talk on this show, so nobody ever argues what cover 2 is or is not ever again. Okay,
Well,
this is a
okay.
great diagram, and
All right,
if you can
pull
put it up. And I will talk right through it. Okay, you see that guy down there? The guy all the way down there. And let's get some things out of the way. Okay. To the wide side of the field is called the field side. To the short side of the field is called the play side. It's in the middle of the hash. It's just the field. Okay. But let's say it's the field side. If it's the field side, which is the long side of the field, meaning the far side of the hash, the cornerback on that side, which is Jalen Ramsey, is doing exactly what you're looking at right there. He's jamming, sinking. He's looking at the hitch, the sink, the out, and the flat. He's reading 4 routes, nothing else. If the guy runs right past him, belongs to the safety. Does not belong to Jalen Ramsey. Now let's flip the field. Let's say it's to the play side. If it's the play side, he carries them to the intermediate. Okay, which is right up there. You see up there where it says react to flat? Okay, that's the cornerback up there. He's protecting the 9 and the 7. Okay, so he's protecting that little hole shot where the safety is going to actually squeeze that space between the cornerback and the safety, that part of the sideline right there, which is very, very hard to throw into. Okay, so in that case, he is carrying to the intermediate, but he's still passing him off deep. That's not what happened in this game. What happened in this game was it was to the field side, and Jalen Ramsey is reading hitch, hook, short slant, and not even a deep post, because the deep post still belongs to Javon Holland, and he's reading the out and the flat. He's reading 4 routes. He's not reading the go. The go is passed off to the free safety. That is Tampa 2. It was created in the very early 90s. It was played in the 80s, but very rarely. It was in the 80s. Actually, this was kind of called the prevent defense. It's not anymore. It became an ethos of defenses in the early 90s. Now it's just cover 2. Dolphins were in cover 2 in that play, and Javon Holland basically broke every single rule you're supposed to break for a free safety covering in cover 2. And he drove the dig, which he's not supposed to, because the dig is supposed to be taken away by the Tampa Mike, which is the guy who drops the deep middle. And you just are supposed to stay deep. You're supposed to be the deepest man right there. He blew the coverage. Javon Holland blew the coverage, and that 71-yard touchdown is charged on Javon Holland, nobody else.
Yeah, and he gets away with that on some guys.
Go ahead.
I was just say Javon Holland probably gets away with that with 50-60% of the receivers in the league, but it's DK Metcalf, and he's too fast to take the wrong step forward, because Holland figured it. I think it's just him instinctually going over where he's supposed to go in the coverage. It's just a little mental blip, but it wasn't like he came running up and didn't understand his coverage. He just came forward a little bit and he shouldn't have. And DK Metcalf is too good. I mean, Tyreek Hill has done that to people so many times. Like, you can't afford to not go to your coverage zone, even if it's just a step or two, because they're too fast. So the Jalen Ramsey thing and all the defense, I mean, you want to complain, maybe our interior D tackles need to play better than Sealer. I'd like to see them stop the run a little bit more efficiently, but that's nitpicking. This defense had multiple turnovers, and we had the ball on like inside the 5 twice. That there was nothing to do with our defense in losing that Seattle game.
I mean, if we're going to be on the topic of Jalen Ramsey, can we talk about how the Ty Johnson play wasn't his fault either? That the other one that everyone likes to charge to him?
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it was just a very similar situation. Clearly he thought he wasn't the one that was supposed to have the help over top on that play. But everybody, and he reacted to it late. He carried him late because he thought he had the help over the top when he should have had the help over the top.
And just keep in mind, we have like Sear and Neal were playing in there. Storm Duck was playing for a while. We lost Fuller, and you're going to have to probably have some more mistakes in coverages in general. And so singling out Ramsey, I mean, he's by far the best corner we have, and he's probably will get a little more heat in the coming few weeks, because I don't know if Fuller will return from concussion protocol, but Ramsey's probably not going to get help that he might. Whoever's playing the other corner, you're probably going to roll safety help to them, maybe more than you typically might, and just hope Jalen Ramsey will hold up with less help. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. So,
I mean, I think of all the things that we have to look at, I think the defense is the least of our concerns. Quite frankly, Anthony Weaver has done a fantastic job. He deserves all the flowers in the world. And if they continue to play like this the entire year, enjoy him while you can, because he'll be a head coach somewhere.
yeah,
maybe
possibly
here.
But I mean, keep in mind too, like, we've got McDaniel going for 4th downs at the middle of the field. We've got Jason Sanders missing 57-yard field goals.
Those are losing me $200.
Yeah, but those are tough situations. The defense has been they've been put in a lot of difficult situations from the offense. Giving teams the ball at midfield is hard to stop from getting points. So I think they've done exceptional, considering the amount of like 3 and outs and turnovers and everything they're having to deal with right now that the offense is giving.
And it's only been 3 games in that new scheme. So yeah, I've been very impressed with what Weaver's done with the defense. I was impressed. Yeah. We talked about it during the preseason. We talked about a lot of the things where there really wasn't a lot of mental errors. Yeah, they've clearly been forced into some mental errors during the season. That was going to happen, but we just talked about a lot of the things, how the defense just looked cohesive. It looked like people knew what they were supposed to be doing, where they were supposed to be going, and what leverage they were supposed to be taking, et cetera, and that's going to continue to improve. And Phillips will continue to improve. Chubb will eventually get back and maybe be. I'm not worried about the defense. We got to fix this offense right now. We got to play somebody better than a practice squad quarterback to do that.
Yeah, and don't get fooled. Like, when your offense scores points, defense becomes much easier. Like, when you know a team has to throw or a team's trying to play from behind, that's when you get picks and sacks and all those glamour stats. But I'm sure you've all seen going all over the place. So Miami hasn't had a lead all year, other than the field goal at the end of the game against the Titans, which we should have lost. Not the Titans, I'm sorry, the Jaguars, but we should have lost that game. But so keep in mind, this defense has never even got to play with a lead. And it's just a lot harder to call a defense when the offense can do whatever they want from a play call standpoint.
Yeah, that is key. This game against Seattle, understand that the defense is pretty much at the mercy of whatever Seattle wants to run because they're playing comfortable. That's another difference too. When your offense has a lead, you could get freaky with the playbook. You could call all kinds of things, and they're gonna have to cover, pretty much the entire field. And they're at your mercy because you can call pass plays now that they might not have covered because they're selling out to stop the run, or they're sending extra rushers to try to make something happen against your passing game. So when you're playing with the lead, you're actually helped out. So I think that the defense has actually played pretty well, considering how incompetent the Dolphins offense has been and how it was against Seattle.
Well, Miami has another chance to make up for it. This time they're going to be at home, I believe, against Tennessee. So they got to snap out of it. This is another opportunity. We need to see what Tyler Huntley can do. I'm really hoping that is the decision that they make.
What does it tell you? What does it tell you that as soon as the game ended against Seattle, odds makers made Tennessee, an 0-3 team, a 1-point favorite? And then as soon as it turns out that Skylar Thompson might not play and Tyler Huntley might start, they completely flipped it, and now Miami's 1.5-point favorite. That tells you all you need to know.
They know how bad Skylar is. So hopefully, again, the lesson has been learned. That's the key with Mike McDaniel. It's not always going to be flowers, and it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Even the best coaches have had bad years. Ask Bill Belichick what the last few years without Tom Brady was in New England for him. It was a miserable experience for him. And he's supposedly the best coach of all time. I use that with air quotes as well, because we all know who the best coach of all time is. And hopefully Bill Belichick loves broadcasting so much that he decides to never come back. And because already people are looking at Jacksonville and saying, maybe Doug Peterson's not worth it after all. I'm not going that far just yet.
This is for a different show, and it's a more of a general NFL topic. I'm ready to start having some Andy Reid versus Bill Belichick conversations.
I'm already having those, man. They're in my head every day and every.
I'm telling you,
it's already there.
That's a great conversation, because I remember a time when people used to get on TV shows and say Andy Reid's a complete clown that should be fired because he can't manage a clock in the last 2 minutes of the half or the game. I remember this like if it was yesterday, okay? And guess what? He was fired in favor of who? Chip Kelly. Do you remember that?
That's right. That was Chip Kelly right after.
And you know why? You know why they hired Chip Kelly? Because they needed somebody to unlock offense in Philadelphia. So they got rid of Andy Reid.
Who, by the way, Andy Reid was almost always in the playoffs with that Philadelphia team.
Yes.
And went to the NFC Championship game most of the time.
I think he went to 5 NFC Championship games and went to 1 Super Bowl. So, of course, you fire that guy.
We would take him in Miami, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Listen, I love McDaniel, but if Andy Reid were to become available, heck yeah.
A playoff win? What the hell is that?
All right, we're going to go ahead and call it here. We've gone a little bit over our time. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us in the chat. As always, if you have not already done so, check out jerseys305.com. You'll be able to go ahead and get 10% off of your order when you use the promo code 5. And of course, make sure you go to Underdog Fantasy as well. All the information you're going to need is in the description of this YouTube show. This show will be shown up on the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast feed very shortly. We will see you all next week for another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. Good night.